the history of Iran and USA right now. As you're watching this video, fighter jets are flying over the skies of the Middle East, and missile after missile is being launched. America and Iran are no longer just locked in diplomatic tension. They are now in direct war. But the question is, did this hostility begin suddenly? Or is it rooted in more than a century of history involving oil, power, and revenge? In today's video, we'll trace this story from the very beginning all the way to the present moment. The rivalry between America and Iran actually traces back to the early 20th century. Iran was once known as Persia. In 1901, a massive oil reserve was discovered there. The British struck a deal with the Shah of Persia, gaining control over 3/4 of the country's oil wealth. For the next 50 years, the British controlled this vast oil resource, which largely powered the British Navy and economy. The turning point came in 1951. Iran's prime minister at the time, Dr. Mohammad Mossadegh, decided to nationalize the country's oil industry. He declared that the revenue from oil sales would be used to eliminate Iran's poverty and underdevelopment. Naturally, this struck at British interests. Britain responded by imposing an international embargo on Iranian oil, crippling the country's economy. To handle the situation, Britain sought help from America, and in 1953, the CIA and Britain's MI6 jointly orchestrated a covert coup to overthrow Iran's democratically elected government. Mossadegh was removed from power, and the Western-backed Shah, Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, was reinstated. This was America's first direct and major intervention in Iranian politics, one that created lasting resentment among ordinary Iranians. Resentment that remains central to Iran's state narrative even today. Under the Shah's rule, a notorious secret police force called Savak was formed, which carried out crackdowns on the public. Meanwhile, America continued to support the Shah as a symbol of stability in the Middle East. But the accumulated public anger exploded in 1979. After 15 years in exile, the religious leader Ayatollah Khomeini returned to the country, leading to the Shah's downfall. This gave birth to the current Islamic Republic of Iran. Shortly after, another major event unfolded. The U.S. Embassy in Tehran was seized, and 52 American staff were held hostage for 444 days. This hostage crisis created a fear and distrust of Iran in the American public, consciousness that persists to this day. In 1980, Iraq's Saddam Hussein invaded Iran, triggering an 8-year bloody Iran-Iraq war. America supported Saddam both openly and covertly, providing intelligence, weapons, and diplomatic backing. For Iran, this was yet another proof that America stood against its very existence. From this point on, Iran adopted a new strategy. Instead of direct warfare, it began building allied armed groups across the region, Hezbollah in Lebanon, and later various armed groups in Iraq and Yemen, together known as the Axis of Resistance, became Iran's primary tool against America and its allies in the decades that followed. By the 2000s, the world's attention had shifted to Iran's nuclear program. Western nations suspected that Iran was moving toward developing nuclear weapons under the guise of civilian technology. In response, one round of economic sanctions after another was imposed, severely damaging Iran's economy. After years of negotiation, the historic nuclear deal, the JCPOA, was signed in 2015. Under it, Iran agreed to limit its uranium enrichment program in exchange for the lifting of sanctions. For a few years, it seemed like the ice between the two nations might finally be melting. But in 2018, President Donald Trump unilaterally withdrew America from the deal and reimposed harsh sanctions under what was called the maximum pressure policy. Iran, too, gradually began violating the terms of the agreement. Then came January 2020, an event that pushed relations to an all-time low. A U.S. drone strike near Baghdad airport killed Iran's most powerful military commander, General Qasem Soleimani. For Iran, this was tantamount to a declaration of war. In retaliation, Iran launched direct missile strikes on U.S. bases in Iraq, the closest the two nations had come to direct military confrontation. In 2025, new negotiations began once again between Iran and America over the nuclear program. Several rounds of talks took place, but the trust deficit between the two sides and disagreement over uranium enrichment limits were never resolved. By early 2026, these talks had effectively reached a deadlock. And it was at that exact moment that something happened that would reshape the entire map of the Middle East. February 28, 2026, a date that will be written into history. America and Israel jointly launched an unprecedented attack on Iran, codenamed Operation Epic Fury. In this sudden strike, carried out even as negotiations were ongoing, Iran's supreme leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei himself was killed, along with several other top officials. The targets weren't just military bases. Iran's state leadership itself was targeted. In retaliation, Iran launched hundreds of missiles and thousands of drones toward Israel and U.S. bases across the Middle East. Within days, what began as limited airstrikes escalated into a full-blown war, one that many are now calling the Third Gulf War. Almost immediately after the war began, Iran effectively shut down the Strait of Hormuz, the world's most critical energy trade route. About 1/5 of the world's oil supply passes through this narrow waterway. The impact was instant. Global oil prices surged, air travel was disrupted, and shipping companies were forced to take longer alternative routes. This crisis wasn't confined to the Middle East. Its effects were felt directly at gas pumps around the world. After nearly 2 months of bloody conflict, on April 8, 2026, America and Iran agreed to a 2-week ceasefire mediated by Pakistan. The goal was to reopen the Strait of Hormuz and pave the way toward lasting peace. But the follow-up talks in Islamabad failed, and America imposed a naval blockade on Iran. Although a memorandum of understanding was signed in June, Iran attempted to assert control over shipping through the Strait of Hormuz and impose its own tolls. In the first week of July, tensions flared again after Iran opened fire on several commercial vessels. Since mid-July, the conflict has intensified once again. America has been carrying out consecutive nights of airstrikes on Iran. Reports have come in of the 7th, 8th, even 10th consecutive night of strikes. Air raid sirens have sounded across Jordan, Kuwait, Bahrain, and Saudi Arabia as air defense systems intercept wave after wave of Iranian missiles. In recent days, several U.S. service members have been killed in Iranian strikes, prompting President Trump to warn Tehran of severe retaliation. According to Iran's health ministry, the death toll from U.S. strikes in recent weeks alone has climbed into the dozens. The U.S. Department of Defense is sending additional fighter jets and refueling aircraft to the Middle East, signaling that this conflict could stretch on for a long time. Back home in America, the effects are being felt too. Gasoline prices have climbed back up to around $4 a gallon. So the hostility that began with that secret coup back in 1953 has, 70 years later, evolved into direct open warfare. History shows that this cycle of oil, power, and mistrust doesn't break easily. Which direction this war takes next is now one of the biggest questions facing the entire world. If this history helped you learn something new, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and let us know in the comments. So do you think this war will end anytime soon? Thanks for watching.